Hello. Thank you so much for joining us. I am thrilled to be introducing today's speaker, Edward Unthank. If you've been in the marketing technology space for any length of time, you've likely seen his impact. Many of his thought leadership pieces and the presentations he's given have become the foundational blueprints that marketing technologists use each and every day. He is also the founder of Etumos, a premier consulting firm which specialized in marketing automation, and you guessed it, operations. He's spent over a decade helping businesses scale smarter, growing his fully remote team to drive innovation across the industry. He also created one of the most vibrant Slack communities that I'm a part of for marketing operations professionals called MOPS Pros. And he's here today because modern MarTech, while allowing us to build faster, launching quicker, and scaling things more efficiently, is also bringing new challenges like unexpected costs. Edward's been at the forefront of this evolution, helping teams navigate the balance between strategy and scalability. But why should you like him? Before he did any of that, he was a WordPress developer. But my favorite part about Edward, he puts care, attention, and even love into everything he builds, including the UTMs he's using to track this very event. Please join me in welcoming Edward. Edward, welcome.
Thank you. It's great to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm glad to be here, honored to be here, and glad to see what I can do to help marketing operations move forward together. Let's jump in, shall we? Hi, my name is Edward Unthank. I am here to speak to you today about marketing operations, development, and marketing, and the future as we know it. What actually are we talking about when we say marketing operations? And it's a little bit of a complex answer, but I'll see what I can do to settle it down here. So, marketing operations. Operations is, in my opinion, embedded tech and IT specifically, IT and process. And this is an approach to companies that's slightly different than a traditional IT approach to building out technologies and determining who owns them and who operates them. It's an idea to have a different org structure where we have instead people who are operational within larger company teams, such as marketing. So this is actually what we have. Ops is its first, a different type of approach to business where we're using embedded IT, contextually aware persons in IT and owning the process and the technology in subsidiary budgets as opposed to an IT global budget. So then we say, what is ops? What does that actually mean when I'm talking about this? Well, there are many different types of operations. And what you'd be looking at is marketing operations is the one that we are here today to talk about. That is to say, how does an idea get from somebody's idea head all the way into a communication and a prospect-facing communication that we can see what it's doing and is actually being able to be tracked and embedded into our ability to grow revenue for the company. So we have marketing operations, sales operations, and then we have different ideas of this on how to actually run and staff the company as it needs to happen in ability to do the roles and responsibilities of the marketing operations. And operations, I consider there to be, okay, what does that really mean? There are a few different things that I like to call pillars here. So we have the 4 pillars of marketing operations, and this is something that I've done before, so if you want to see it, you should go look it up. I've done quite a bit on this, and it's interesting enough that you should see some of the more canonical videos. But basically, the idea is, what is marketing operations? The 4 MOPS pillars are platform, and this is to say governance, administration, and architecting. And then we have campaign as a pillar, and this is to say all of the execution, planning, feedback. And that being the campaign responsibility of marketing operations overall as being something that needs to be taken care of. The 3rd pillar is marketing intelligence operations, and this is basically analysts and data scientists And data scientists is basically where we have the future going. I have an idea and a talk about this as well. This is where mathematical AI, not large language models, but instead to say the mathematical, for example, creation of a recommendation engine or scoring persons based on their likelihood to have a positive conversation with sales. All of those would be some large scoring implications. And then the fourth and interesting piece that's going to be applicable here to this specific audience is going to be what I call development marketing operations. It's a hefty title, but I'm open to new ideas on better naming. The idea on DevMops is this is what I'd say everyone in this room actually does. And this is web operations. Web operations, that means maintenance of a www and any subdomains that are prospect-facing, customer-facing, public. And this is to say the people who, if you get an email and if you get a landing page or a new blog to fill out, you get something like a sloppy intake form. Web operations converts that intake form into actual changes on the website. And this is something that's usually it's just kind of done implicitly right now by either marketers. It either has marketers doing it or it has product doing it. And this is in the case where your product team actually makes the website and owns it. And then it can even go further into IT, owning any of this function. The second piece of this DevMops pillar is to look at full stack engineering. So full stack can mean anything, of course, that's the entire point. But the important pieces are integrations, custom configurations, and this is what I like to work on because this is where we can use our creativity and our knowledge of all of this system to say, if we as the operations people, we know what goes into a marketing email. We know what goes into a landing page, what goes into a campaign. We've taken all those things and we've structured them. And operations, I consider it to be our responsibility to take the abstract of marketing, the abstract of requests, and actually make them happen in the system. And as I say, there are kind of these four platforms, and I want to dive more into development marketing operations because it turns into how you consider strategy in your company. What marketing are you looking to do? What's the approach? What's the expansion? How do you deal with this in reality, not just conceptually? And I've been able to come up with an idea of technology first marketing. What this means is it's the opposite driving direction, which is usually from a company. And the company usually has a top-down approach to all of this. So this top-down strategy is usually when we're talking about having opinions from larger people higher up in the organization. That's when you just receive the budget and you say, this is our new path. This is how we go forward. That's the top-down strategy. And that is basically, I'd say, how most of marketing works these days. Most of revenue marketing works by this kind of top-down strategy, capital S strategy. The second one that I look at here is lowercase s strategies. And this is when we talk about a combination of tactics, or not tactics, but rather strategic initiatives. And these strategic initiatives are what drive the go-dos for the rest of the marketing department and the rest of the organization. So these are strategic initiatives. And then finally, we have the last level of abstraction, that being tactics. And in a tactics point of view, this is when we get into what we as the day-to-day marketers usually end up doing. The tactics are remarketing. They are email capture. into a CMS system or a larger system to have persons and individuals for selling. There are many different additive tactics where we get things like communication strategies and newsletters, webinars, whatever is going to be most effective for the organization to drive organizational change, and whatever they need to make a revenue is really what it comes down to. And there are some new things that can be enabled by a view of technology-first marketing. So for one, you can look at a mathematical model of how to actually do all of marketing. And that would be an idea of technology-first marketing, where we can have individuals in our system come into the system, fill out forms, and then go through a process, and then is process designed from the technology perspective, because the technology is actually what's doing the things here. We are talking about once a person fills out a form, then they go into a campaign, and that campaign sends a follow-up email with a link to the thing that they downloaded. And then it's able to capture them and prioritize them against a database to be able to determine how hard should we sell this person? How much should we give them? More nurture, less nurture, different email, whatever it needs to happen. But when we look at this, we can have a funnel-based approach, which is only technology enabled. And this is what everyone is calling, the serious, what used to be called, say, the waterfall approach with MQLs, and then working backwards to whatever the company KPI, key performance indicator goals actually are for the organization. It takes them and it combines them together. So what this also means is that we have an ability as the people who are on the bottom, the tactical people who are actually considering, how does this work? How do we make it happen? And it's a fun idea because I started out as a web developer, and I think most people here are something similar. I started out as a web developer in WordPress, and I fell in love with the things like naming conventions and the things like scalable infrastructure and robust infrastructure, and having parent themes and child themes and robust ability to add changes on top of things while maintaining the same core structure, and then being able to apply that to lots of different companies. That's the fun part to me, is say, hey, what is the consistent pattern across all of these things that can get us to actually move the needle and provide business impact? Instead of being a top-down strategy, which is most of the time what most companies are, we can instead, as the marketers, say, there are some excellent ideas for us to look at the technology, see that there are new ways to do it, and invent new strategic initiatives based on that knowledge. And so that is a fun part of technology-first marketing, because I imagine it like building Lego blocks. If you know how to build something with Legos, eventually it gets to the point where you think of the individual modular components. And these modular components stack on top, and then you're able to build something beautiful from it. And the idea is technology-first marketing is to say we start with the practitioners in the tactical level, the real, actual technical, what's happening in the system level. And then from there, we can move them into strategies, we can bottle them into strategic initiatives, and then we can escalate them higher and up until they become capital S strategy for the overall company. So that is one of the benefits of an approach that I've taken, being first a developer and then growing into enterprise business-to-business marketing for large companies, large complex companies. So let's take a little bit more of a view of this. Technology marketing. How do you actually make the technology marketing happen? And this is where we look at the overall revenue stack. And this is something that is kind of key. Before, it used to be called a marketing tech stack, which was popularized before. But the idea on a revenue stack is that includes marketing tech and sales tech into that, as well as one day customer success tech. So the whole point of this is everyone has a kind of a system. You have the different ways and the different tools in the system and how they build up. So the most common way that this works right now I'm going to describe it, is I'm going to say the traditional approach, stack approach. This is a marketing, or called a marketing automation platform, an MAP. There is a CRM, which is a customer relationship management platform, the database where the salespeople use it. So this is a sales tool generally. This is a marketing tool generally. And there are different, these complex tools. The example of an MAP would be Adobe's Marketo Engage. Another example would be Pardot Marketing Cloud Account Engagement, according to Salesforce currently, and all the different names. And another example would be Eloqua. And we have the up and coming ones like Inflection.io, which are more forward facing. So all of this traditional model is based on marketers using these different marketing tools and then building landing pages and emails in different cadences. And there are things like individual forms, and individual forms lead into a category. Once somebody captures someone, then a marketing can get credit for it, and it goes into this whole queue of being able to determine who gets credit. So this is our first common approach. It's the simplest. It's marketing and it's sales. And then we have this other implicit website, which is kind of like ignored or owned by somebody else, such as a product team. I would argue that the website should also be a component of the marketing automation platform. And then, of course, there's data syncing between both of the sales tool, the marketing automation platform, being the marketing side, and the CRM being the sales side of the component. This is a traditional approach. This is what's been happening all up until 2021. The second approach that we're seeing grow, and that I like quite a bit, is being able to take these technologies and then reverse them into their core functions. That is to say, database, CDP, there is marketing, there is sales, there is product. And all of these systems tie into this CDP, which is the general mega database. It's like a data lake. It's everything all together. This is a more common approach to say that right now, as companies are growing into these, they're starting to make sense to start with a global database, which is your first-party data, if you want to use buzzwords. This is where all of your first-party data is stored and archived and acted upon. And then the idea of this is once we have these different systems in here, then we can add a meta abstraction layer. And this meta abstraction layer can give us dashboards. So this is what MyOps comes in to do. And this is how we get all the dashboards going. So this is what the future looks like. I think this is going to be the more common architectural play that we see. So Web Ops. What is Web Ops? Web Ops is the actual creation and maintenance of landing pages and websites. So we have, of course, WordPress, but we have to consider what is the expansion of WordPress. And WordPress may be our www. What are the other subdomains? And those subdomains need to be owned, managed, and orchestrated. And that is the responsibility, I would say, of the marketing operations team, which I would say is your responsibility, is our responsibility. So Web Ops maintains these things, and as they do that, they say, how do we structure that? Usually it turns into how to staff, now I need to talk about how do you actually staff marketing operations in this world. And there's 4 different pieces that I see as being a common thread. And this is the name of marketing operations is really up in the air right now. And I'm hoping that we can consolidate a bunch of what we see. First one is operations. It's just the idea of contextually embedded teams providing great function. This is marketing ops and sales ops. This is most common. This is how most teams are structured. If you have a marketing department and a sales department, this is your way that it works. Functional ops. Functional ops says that there's a specific sub-function of the team. An example would be that it's team with a specific slant. This would be, for example, content marketing ops. This would be, for example, lead generation, everything to do with lead generation. This is an idea of looking at the functional piece and turning it into an operational team. Whose whole job is to maximize the efficiency and the efficacy of what we have there. And finally, we have what's growing up right now, strategy ops. And this is where I see, for example, the most common one, go-to-market ops, is I'm seeing in the tech space quite a bit. Now, I think that this is an embedded strategy, and I don't think that all companies should have go-to-market based teams, roles, responsibilities. I think instead, you need to look at what's going to be the best for the company. Depends on the prospect size, on the contract size, if you're doing business to business or business to consumer. And it's taking all of these approaches and finding them individually and finding how to actually staff them. All right, well, from here, I'm going to jump into some questions and answers.
Edward, that was amazing. That was awesome. Thank you so much. In our previous chats, we've talked a little bit about the idea of progressive enhancements to build personalized experiences, especially on the fly. We also know a lot of WordPress developers and marketers, they're still creating content manually, especially multiple versions of the same content manually. From your perspective, how do you think WordPress developers should be thinking about building these kinds of experiences more efficiently and better at scale?
Great question. All right. So question being, so for example, progressive enhancement is one of the things that I love about marketing technology. It's an idea that we can take something from a different area, such as overall a book apart and everything about the best practices of web generally. And then, for example, have a personalized user experience for people who are visiting the web. I think the channel of website is so underutilized because that is the area of one-to-one communication, changes in dialogue with the actual users. That's where 90% of the buying process comes into play, is on site. Everything else is a mechanism to get people on site. On site is the actual experience that matters. So it's looking at different tools and figuring out how to make that. Personalization at scale is something that is only now becoming possible out of technology and tools. So AI tools, being able to do scale and actual customization at scale programmatically and be able to measure the efficacy of it by having, for example, people who have personalized versus people who don't, having a controlled test where we say, all right, 10% of the people who visit here are not going to have any progressive enhancement of their marketing experience. And therefore, we're not going to change CTAs on the website to be personalized. We're not going to change any of the language, any of the verbiage, any of the pictures. But we have new tools, personalization, and we need to think about how we can personalize at scale. And web ops is exactly positioned to do this. And this is where I see things like having thinking about the world modularly and how we can put in modules as web operations. We can put in a module and then use it in marketing technology in a really creative way, such as writing a personalized ChatGPT personalized message, and then dynamically placing it via JavaScript to replace, for example, a placeholder value to say, welcome here. Instead, we can have a personalized sentence that can come in here. That's an example of AI that's not being done right now, but could be done and is very quickly, I'd say, going to be done.
Edward, this is going to be a really tough question. I need your hottest take on WordPress and or MarTech. Don't get me fired.
Okay, fine. I'll try my best. Okay, here's what we got. WordPress. WordPress is the business-to-business solution. It is the best technology. It's the best platform. It's the best way that a business-to-business company can do business-to-business marketing. What I didn't say in there is mega scale. Because as we know, and as I've learned from being a WordPress developer, the hardcore engineering stacks that have gone into tech, developers, full stack engineers don't really respect WordPress that much. I think that's pretty faulty. I don't think that makes any sense. It's meant to be a CMS. It's certainly not meant to be the most pure code-free, eliminated, just absolutely pure experience. I think that's an optimization that anyone can do within the tool itself, but by default, it's not really going to be doing that. Now, marketing automation, how it all goes overall, I think on-site optimization has been entirely ignored. It happened as a trend. Optimizely came in, Google built a little tool to beat it and kill it off. And then we ran through a trend of on-site optimization, personalization, and then it just went away. But I don't think that fad should have gone away. That fad should have been turned into a trend, should have turned into best practices. And that is when we talk about how to have user experience customized to where people are across channel, and then having that cross channel being orchestrated through WordPress, the website, and on WordPress, the website, to have a cohesive experience across all of those. There is a lot of platform ability to have grandiose enhancements across lots of different customers and industry types because of WordPress platform scalability.
All right, Edward, last question. It's going to be a hard one. If people enjoyed what they heard today and they want to join the conversation or learn more, where would you point them?
Thank you for that softball question. I would point them into mopspros.com. Go to mopspros.com, fill out a form, join the community, see everything that we have. We have that, and we have all of our resources there. It's education. It's where we grow the vocation of marketing operations.
Edward, thank you so much again. Always a pleasure. Always enjoy seeing your content and watching you perform live. And to everybody out there in the community, we especially love you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Wherever you are in the globe, have a good rest of your morning, afternoon, evening. Thanks again.
Thanks. I'll see you there. I'll see you there.